endlessly searching for an original sound.
Hey everyone over at my chat, and hey everyone, it's gonna be fun. Also, damn it, Discord.
Hello.
Hi.
Just waiting on the missus to get back, so she's getting the little ones sorted out here quick, and then we'll start on up.
Hey, no worries. I'm just talking with my chats and everything like that.
Sweet.
Oh, I can hear the little ones. They sound adorable.
He's very mad because he wants both help and not help in opening his snack because he's 3, so I need to do it myself. Also, help me.
It sounds like my puppy. She wants to play fetch, but yet she doesn't want to give up the ball.
Pretty much. Oh, I see some people swinging by from your chat.
Guys, do a chat raid on them. Come on.
All right.
All right.
Get this rolling here.
Ready to go.
Stream opening. The opener is about a minute long, and then we'll start on up.
Alrighty.
And then the questions are in the Evernote there, dear.
Oh.
Just for the topic questions.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Somebody in my chat said, kids never know what they want.
Yeah, no, they never do.
Alright, you guys on Discord, I've given you guys the links. You guys can go do a chat raid. Be nice, and you can ask whatever questions you want.
What?
I think she's talking to her chat. She's streaming at the same time here.
So that we can get you guys some more people to come over and subscribe.
Nice.
All right. 5 seconds, dear.
All right. I'm ready.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, and hello, people from
From Purity Sin Stream.
Purity Sin Stream as well.
We've got a special guest with us today, Purity Sin.
Hi.
And if I can get there we go. Now I have the Discord showing on screen. Oh,
Discord sometimes doesn't want to show.
Yeah. So we've got some questions, and we thought we'd do kind of an informal interview of you, and
just chat and stuff.
Yeah, just kind of chat and go as long as you like, and then we'll if you head out after an hour, we'll bring on our own guests to jump in from our Discord, or if you want to stick the whole 2 hours, that's cool too.
Well, I'll try, but it depends. I've got to probably take care of the puppy. She's
I understand.
Yeah. Puppies are that way.
Yeah. Tomorrow she turns a year old, so she's like, I'm going to be a brat today because I know you won't do anything to me. It's my last day being a puppy.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. So I guess the first question, for those in our chat that have no clue who you are, so exactly who you are and what do you do for YouTube? Are you primarily a Twitch streamer or primarily a YouTuber? So, tell us a little bit about yourself and what your content's all about.
Well, I'm called, at least on YouTube, Purity Sin or Tia, whichever one you want to call me. I've been called a lot of other things like Mama and stuff like that. People on YouTube are weird.
Yes, they are.
I do gaming on YouTube and Twitch, and I also do more of the adult variety of games. When I'm not doing that, I'm writing comic books and animations. The scripts for that kind of thing. So I'm almost always busy with stuff to try to entertain my fans.
Awesome.
Are the comic books also of a more naughtier nature or mainstream?
Well, right now, our first official one that's going to be released, called Chaotic Stories, is more middle of the road so that kids can read it with a few jokes for adults. There may be some side, special edition issues with more adult content. But for now, we want to be able to do it to where kids can read it. Because my big thing is I want to be able to teach children.
Okay.
And like Chaotic Stories and the animation I did for Disney, The Forgotten Tune, was basically I want to teach kids that this whole thing with race and color and all that, that's not actually important. That working hard, being able to figure out puzzles and things like that, that's what you need to focus on. You need to be able to learn and see people for who they are. That was kind of what got me into wanting to teach kids.
Very cool.
Very cool.
So are you going for education, or is this more of just a passion project?
I used to work in education for a very short time, so it's kind of a passion project and education because I saw what was going on in the education system, and I was seeing a lot of kids not learning. And one of the things when I was a teaching assistant was there was a little kid, I want to say about 13, 14, and he had a friend that was black, and they had been friends for quite a few years, and one of the teachers lost their mind about it.
Ah.
And
because they were friends?
Yeah, because they were treating each other normally, you know, they were making fun of each other as jokes, because, you know, kids do that, friends do that. And she punished the white kid, but she wouldn't punish the black kid. And when I asked, why aren't you doing, you know, why aren't you punishing both, even though they don't deserve to be punished because they were just joking around, she said, well, this kid needs to check his privilege. And that was kind of the first time I'd ever heard that kind of thing. And I'm like, what the heck is privilege?
Oh, so you saw the privilege thing being taught in schools firsthand.
Yes, and it was kind of the first time I had ever witnessed it. And this was quite a few years ago. I haven't been in the school system for a very long time. It was very strange to me because coming from a mixed race family, coming from a low income too, I'd never encountered that. I've always had neighbors of all different kinds of races and everyone got along. And I'm seeing this kind of thing, and I'm seeing this teacher purposely turning kids against each other.
Yeah, the whole idea of the teaching privilege thing always struck me as just teaching kids to be biased and to hate. It has less to do with, oh, well, you know, this person's an underprivileged class or something like that.
Well, it teaches kids to look at basically the skin color.
Yeah.
There were a number of kids I knew in school who were, you know, black or Mexican, and their families had way more money than mine.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like who's the privileged one here?
Well,
yeah, I was an army brat, so privilege wasn't a thing.
you got the fun. But when I went to Disney because I got to pitch a show to them through a third-party group, I did an animatic because they only gave us 10 days. It was a nightmare, but we did an animatic called The Forgotten Tune, and the main character is a black and white cartoon character, where it was a villain that's been thrown away. She didn't even get to finish getting drawn. Somebody kind of finds her picture and gives her a chance to come to life. Think of like Roger Rabbit type of world.
Oh, very cool.
So we showed it to the third party that was supposed to supposedly showed it to Disney, and we did the whole write-up, and it was about her working hard to become famous. And yes, it's not going to be easy. Her friends are colored toons. You've got a bunch of black and whites too, to show that, you know, the kind of thing it doesn't matter if you're a black and white toon. You can still become famous if you work hard and you're entertaining. And we were told, nobody wants to see this. This isn't the right message for kids anymore, and that it would never make it anywhere. And I just kind of when I was told that, I was dumbfounded. I'm like, what do you mean this isn't something that we should be teaching kids?
Well, do you think...
Seems like a pretty universal message.
Well, do you think the message in a lot of kids' cartoons now has gotten so dumbed down with the everyone's special message versus the, like what you were saying, which shows a lot of hard work can get you very far?
I watch kids' cartoons now because, again, I am trying to get my cartoon out there. I'm absolutely appalled by what is going on in animation, and I know many animators, and so many of them will not work anymore in animation because the messages are dumbed down. Like, when we were kids, I'm not sure how old you guys are. I'm about 30, so...
I'm a bit older than you.
I turned 30 this year.
Okay, so you're in my age. You guys remember Looney Tunes, Animaniacs.
Oh, yes.
Have you seen the DVD? I caught the DVD from the library some months back, and on the DVD, for Looney Tunes actually puts a they've upgraded to a parental guidance in some of the episodes, even like PG-13.
Yeah, the reason they did that, and I actually like that Warner is willing to release their cartoons that, you know, would be considered taboo now. Now, I used to be an animator up until an accident. When I got out of before teaching, I was an animator. We did an animation history class, and I love that class. The first thing we were taught was you watch the cartoons for the time they came out, not for nowadays. Because you can learn so much more by seeing how it was back then. And we got to discuss them and stuff. I remember I got to show some of those cartoons in school to the kids one day when I was teaching them, and they loved them. They loved, like, the war tunes, like, you know, Bugs Bunny fighting the Japanese and stuff like that, because they're not seeing it as racist. They're seeing it as, oh, Bugs Bunny's fighting a bad guy. They're not seeing anything like that. But the teachers were yelling at me for showing that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I do like when they, even when they do have to release it with the whole, the memo from it, this is from the time period. We haven't changed it, but this is what cartoons were in this time period. And still find a way of actually getting it out there versus just scrapping it because
I guess that's about the only way you can get around some of these, you know, the PC warriors where it's just, you know, oh, well, you know, that was mean to a marginalized group, you know, 60 years ago. We have to bury it and forget it ever happened.
Well, the fact is, and I'm glad they give that message. I know people roll their eyes on it, and they did this before the whole PC thing. They did it to try to teach people that, you know, because they knew this was coming. I think the guys at Warner Brothers that worked on bringing these cartoons out, they knew it was coming. But I like that they put the message out there, and The Simpsons did the same thing recently. Have you seen it?
I have not. Or was that with Apu?
Yeah, it was at the college episode, because I was thinking of the college episode where they got onto a social justice college, and he was doing that. Yeah.
That was great. That episode was fantastic. I couldn't stop laughing at that. But the whole thing with Apu, they actually said the same thing I was taught in my animation courses, that you look at it for the year or for the time it came out. And also, why was somebody complaining about Apu? He's like the best character in The Simpsons. Come on. He gets his own episodes.
He is also the most, when you look at his character versus all the other characters that have been that are mainstays, he is living the American dream. He's an immigrant who got his own business started, owns it, has a family. Yeah, there was the oops, we had 8 kids moment episode, but he still takes care of his family. So I don't know why people were getting up in arms about him. If anything, they could point to him and go, you know, this is something to strive for. You know, not necessarily having that many kids, but, you know, the idea that he's a family man. He knows how to take care of his family. He knows how to run a business. And
was the most fleshed out, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you don't normally see that with side characters, and they did a lot with him. And that's why I was laughing when I saw someone complaining about him. Oh, he runs a Quickie Mart. Yeah, he runs the Quickie Mart. He doesn't work there. He runs it, and he wants to work there. How many times do you see someone that not only owns a business, but they want to be there running it?
Oh, not much these days. Oh, and if it is a business owner depicted in some cartoon, it's usually the absolute worst boss archetype you could possibly imagine, like the guy who treats all of his employees like absolute garbage, who's, you know, and all the employees are just there running down the clock till they can punch out.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. So you're saying a lot of animators now are having issues with the fact it's gotten so PC, or they're just dealing with it for the paycheck?
It's not only that it's gotten PC, but from what I understand from some people that work at companies, and I can't say names because I'm not going to
obviously
get fired.
Right. And we wouldn't want you to.
Certain cartoons that are very popular right now, actually working with them is terrible because all of the writers will just fight with each other. They'll fight with the animators. It's been beyond a nightmare from what I understand. It's basically, if you look at it a couple of years ago, because my family used to work with Steven Spielberg on Animaniacs and Tiny Toons. This is kind of why I'm so much into animation. It's everybody worked together. There was no fighting. There was no arguing. Everyone had fun with it. There were a little arguing.
I'm sorry. We got over. I got. All right, I got to turn something down.
Yeah, turn
here.
off that right now.
That got a little loud.
Super
sorry.
chat.
A super chat came in, but the audio for it was too loud. We couldn't hear you.
Oh no, it's fine.
So could you repeat what you said there?
Okay. So I was saying when people I knew that worked at like Warner Brothers for Animaniacs, Tiny Toons and those, everybody worked together. Yes, it was very hard because it was old style animation, but everybody had fun. The writers would work together. They wouldn't fight with each other. The voice actors would come in for the readings and stuff, and everybody would have fun. They'd even bring their kids. I got to go to a few of the Animaniacs and Tiny Toons readings when I was very small.
Nice.
Oh, that had to have been wild for you.
I sadly don't really remember any of it, but I've always been told stories about it. Like I was sitting on Steven Spielberg's lap and stuff because I was very young when they made it.
Wow.
But I hear now from animators that I know that there's nothing but fighting, like because everybody wants to put their ideology into the cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
It's everybody's butting heads, they're arguing, they're toxic, they're threatening each other. It's like the horror stories that you hear from certain game developing groups.
Right.
Yeah.
It's happening in animation, and it's going to be the downfall of both video games and animation, and people don't realize that. Yes, you can give messages to kids in animation. I 100% think that lessons should be done and stuff like that. Please, I hate politics being put into cartoons. I really do, unless you're just doing something like the Animaniacs with the Bill Clinton thing where they had him really quickly, and that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
something
fine.
that's more for the grown-ups, not so much the...
Well, something even more for like it's a pop culture reference even now of like Bill Clinton playing the saxophone. It's just a pop culture reference at this point. It has less to do with politics.
Yeah, see, pop culture is fine, and my big thing, and I'm always going to do this in the comics and any animation or cartoons I make, subtle jokes that kids won't get that adults just sit there going, are you kidding me? Did you actually say that? Kids won't get it, but the adults will just be staring going, oh, I'm so glad they're innocent. Like, oh, what was it? Have you ever seen the Birds of Prey song from Batman Brave and the Bold?
God.
Yeah,
I vaguely remember it.
I vaguely...
I watched that series.
The entire song was about superhero dick.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do remember that part when
and
I
it was
rewatched
hysterical.
it.
You know kids aren't going to get it. They think when they say Aquaman's little fish, they think they're actually talking about fish. Adults are just sitting there going, what did they just say?
Yeah.
Did they just say Aquaman has a little dick? Wait, how do you even know that? Does Mara know?
Yeah. Well, I think that was the fun part of cartoons, at least for our generation. I mean, hell, there was Rocco's Modern Life, where Rocco worked as a sex online over the phone.
The online sex or the phone sex operator.
Phone sex operator.
I remember watching that episode when I was a kid, and I was at, I want to say, a babysitter's house at that point, or somebody's house. I was at somebody's house, and they walked by and they heard the oh baby, and they look at the TV, and their jaw drops. And at that point, I didn't get it, because again, kids don't really get that, and I'm like, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Can you watch any other cartoon? Why? I like this cartoon. I'm not going to win this one, am I?
No. Yeah.
Keep watching it.
Yeah. And then Rocco, that show put out a lot of subtle messages that really weren't for the kids necessarily, for the adults to catch.
It was the era.
The I Like Rainbows episode.
Yeah. Well, and I think Purity can agree with this. I think there was a time where cartoons or animators and writers thought about the parents also being stuck in the room for these cartoons. So they throw in as much as they could, and pushed it more. So the parents are like, okay, this is funny, but they don't get why.
Yeah, like right now with animation, it's not about subtlety. It's about let's see if we can push the censors, piss off the censors. Like, okay, Steven Universe. That's a big one that I can't, I want to like that show, but it does so much wrong that it drives me nuts. Like, you've seen the dancing in that, right?
Partly, yes.
Yeah.
They're worse. I know somebody that's worked on that show, and I have seen what's been cut out by censors. They try to do a lot worse. I don't agree that should be in a kid's show. You can do dancing and have a little bit of sexuality to it. Like, let's look at the old Looney Tunes with Little Red Riding Hood and stuff. You can do it like that where the parents are going to be like, ooh, that's hot. And the kids are just going to be like, yay! I like this character.
Well, hello, nurse.
The old, exactly, Animaniacs. Hello,
Even
nurse.
then, the kids didn't get it. They kind of got it, but it wasn't a huge thing. Now it's just like, we need to throw this in your face that they're sexual. Do you get it? They're lesbians? If you haven't gotten it, here's 6 more times of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are so many ways you can alert the older bits of the audience to the reality of the situation without just hammering them over the head with it.
Well, best example would be Sailor Moon.
Yeah, but the American version, they made them into
cousins. I know,
cousins.
We ignore what the American version did and only go with what the Japanese did.
Oh, I laughed so hard at that point when those lines started coming out, because I hadn't looked it up when they were first on TV, because I think the internet was still kind of newer. And
Right.
they're like, we're cousins. And then you start hearing the lines, and it's like, I don't think cousins should be, even as a kid, it's like, I don't think cousins should be acting like this. Mommy, they're doing bad things to each other, and they're cousins.
They're degenerate cousins. They're not cousins.
Well,
I didn't know
just
they
cousins.
came from the South.
Well, it's kind of one of those things that was an example of when American censors kind of almost made it worse.
You ever
Yeah.
seen what they did to the original Astro Boy in Gigantor?
No,
I
I
have
not.
not.
If you can get your hands on them, watch the original black and whites. And I'm a huge Tezuka fan. I'm an anime nerd. I will always love my Blackjack. But I sat with my mom when they showed Astro Boy on TV. And when I grew up, I watched the Japanese tapes because my mom lived in Japan for quite a few years. So I had seen Gigantor and Astro Boy and stuff like that, in Japanese.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I'm watching for the first time the American versions of them. And most of the scenes are chopped up, everything's cut out, the violence and all that, they cut that stuff out because they're like, oh, kids can't handle a lot of this. And I'm not saying anything bad about the voice acting, because that's still early on in voice acting, so as much as you want to make fun of it, I understand it. It's just watching it again, and my mom's like, oh, I used to watch this as a kid, it's the best thing ever, and she's watching it now, like the American version now, and she's like, what am I watching?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely one of some shows just don't age well. And some, and some seem very prescient after you watch them, whether it's cartoons or live action.
Well, you kind of got to understand, at least with Astro Boy and stuff, that was the 50s when that came to America. It was about 62, I believe, when it came to America. Back then, they kind of had to cut it up the way they did because, the censors, and they didn't think kids could handle violence or the messages that were in the show.
Yeah.
Because it's always been an assumed thing, kids are stupid.
Yeah, I guess that is the difference between attitudes like in Japan versus like the U.S., where, I mean, even take Naruto. Blood coming from the nose for the sexy girl dance that Naruto does. That's changed to flowers in the U.S.
What,
because
seriously?
Yeah, there was a version that was airing during the daytime on Cartoon Network where they took the time to completely reanimate the blood spurt into flowers shooting out of the guy's nose. And then there was other times where they just got lazy, removed the blood. The guy's nostrils would get super wide and he'd fly away for no reason.
That's horrible.
They didn't think kids could handle a nosebleed.
Kids can handle, like, I've always hated that, and especially, starting to write for kids and stuff like that. I've always hated that because after dealing with children long enough, you know they're smarter than people think. They're smart little shits.
Yeah.
They know exactly what they're doing. They're just going to act like they don't. They're like dogs. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, and then you take into account that kids have access to more information than kids of our age, when we were kids, ever had. Like if we wanted to learn anything, we had to go and hit up the library or hope something played on the TV.
Yeah.
The internet wasn't a thing, and when the internet first became a thing, I was building my first computer, got a 14.4K modem, and we had BBS boards to talk with other people on.
Yeah.
So it's definitely one of those things where it's the times have changed, and I think people assume children are complete and utter morons because we constantly put them in kit gloves. We're constantly treating them like they don't.
It's always been a thing. It's always, like, I can understand, I understand let kids be innocent. I do understand, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can have messages in your cartoons. I mean, when we were younger, we were watching stuff like Watership Down.
Yeah.
Ooh, Watership Down versus Nim, though, I would say the more psychologically scarring for a 5-year-old would probably be Watership Down.
Oh, God, yeah. You know what? Did you hear the story that happened, I think, 2 years ago? They showed Watership Down on Easter, apparently, in the UK, and parents had a hissy fit. And I'm hearing this, and I'm like, do you know they used to show that in school here? We had to watch that shit in school.
Oh yeah.
Do you know?
Buddies!
Do you know parents used to rent? My parents rented that and Bambi from Blockbuster. Like,
Right?
here's some kids' cartoons.
Yep.
Oh,
And-
Bambi's so cute. Look, his mother's Oh, mama. Have you ever seen what Walt Disney was one of my favorites to study in animation courses. That man wanted to teach kids what the world was really like.
Oh yeah.
He wanted to do his cartoons to the actual stories, and they would have been amazing. I saw the script for what he originally wanted to do for Peter Pan, and I'm like, that is insane. Why didn't this become a thing? His own writers and animators, the other people that worked with him said, dude, you gotta chill out.
Yeah.
You can't make it this dark. We're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah, well, the censors were a lot stricter then.
They did let him kill Bambi's mother, though.
Well, I think maybe because it was a deer.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a woman. So it's like, okay,
no way
deer
they would've-
hunting.
But then
Yeah.
again,
Deer
look
hunting
what they
happens.
did to the Wicked Witch and Snow White. They offed her right off the
yeah.
cliff.
Yeah, they killed two people in that movie. The first one, that gets crushed by a house, and the second one that gets sprayed with water and melting.
That's Wizard of Oz. Then.
Oh, Wizard of Oz. Sorry.
Wizard of
mixing up
Oz
my
is its own
movies.
thing. Disney's
Yeah,
already
that's
trying
it.
to ruin that.
Of course.
Well,
yeah.
Actually, what do you think, since you studied Walt Disney so much, what do you think of now the live-action remakes of the classics?
I hate everything about them, and I want them to burn.
Speaking as someone who's been in the film industry for one film and a TV show
I'm
pilot,
so sorry.
yeah, but it's okay. I worked on an indie film and an indie TV show, so
Oh, man, I'm so sorry.
Wasn't too bad, but one made it into theaters.
Hey, that's awesome.
A big part of why they keep doing these live action things is because they have the cartoon and they don't want to necessarily redo the cartoons because they fired their entire film animation house after.
Yeah, don't get me started with that one.
Yeah,
I lost my
fired
job
them
at Pixar because of that.
Yeah, they had fired their entire cartoon staff after the failure of Treasure Planet to really do as well as they had anticipated.
Well, that one was because they kept messing with them, and Eisner is a moron who basically tried to run Disney into the ground.
Yeah,
And I'll give
no
Treasure
argument
Planet
there.
one thing. Treasure Planet actually is completely underrated for what people say it is.
Treasure Planet and two movies that got screwed over by Disney is Treasure Planet and Black Cauldron. And nobody seems to know this about Black Cauldron. The only one that anybody's ever seen is the cut-up version, because that was going to be the first one that Walt Disney Studios was going to make for adults. Walt himself okayed it. But unfortunately, he died before release, so the guy that took over Walt Disney Studios thought it would be for kids, so when they first showed it to test audiences, they showed it to parents and kids.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was so violent,
The parents wanted it cut.
Yeah.
parents lost their shit. And he wouldn't listen to the animators who were like, this isn't for kids, this is for adults and teenagers. He's like, I don't care. Everything we do has to be for little kids. And it's like, oh.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, Black Cauldron definitely is. Those are two films that whenever everyone went like, oh my god, those are horrible. And then you watch them years later and it's like, Treasure Planet was actually a very creative way of retelling Treasure Island.
Oh yeah. One of the problems though with Treasure Planet and that led to its poor showing was a couple things. One, it was being released at a time when people were fairly done and over with the idea of a pirate film. Because
Yeah, it was bad timing.
Yeah, it was a bad timing for the release because we had just a years-long stint of random pirate films like trying to think of that really terrible live-action pirate film. It was trying to recreate like the magic of like the 30s and 40s with like
Oh, I know the one you're talking about. The one that's actually kind of funny because they hammed it up, which was great.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny for how bad it is.
I don't think it's bad. I think it's because they tried to do, that
Cutthroat Island. Thank you,
There you
Ray
go.
Stone. Yep.
Cutthroat Island was good.
Yeah. I
Atlantis
thought it
was
was
another really good one that didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't get the love. You know what I remember, and I wish Disney would do it again, like try to push the envelope. Does anyone remember Hunchback of Notre Dame? Well, Notre Dame.
Oh
is
god, I love
Classic.
that movie.
When I was in at that point I was just starting to get into working in animation. Well, learning about animation and meeting animators and stuff because of my family. I got to see the original script for what the animators had planned for that. And they didn't want to make Frollo the villain.
They didn't.
Originally, he was, if you've ever read the book, you know Frollo isn't a villain. He's
not.
trying to do what he thinks is right. He never actually kills anyone. He's not mean to, brain goes dead, the Hunchback. Quasimodo.
Yeah.
He's not actually mean to him. The original version of the movie, he was going to be nicer to him. Yes, he was going to become the quote-unquote villain because he's doing, trying to get rid of the gypsies and all that. Kind of. But the guy you see, and I can't remember his name, the gypsy guy, is actually the villain in the movie. He was supposed to be because he was in the books too. Yeah, They changed it. Disney forced them to change it because they said that we have to have a villain that they'll understand. So the only thing that actually got there from the original script is that song that Frollo sings. That's from the original script. And you can tell what they wanted to do with that movie just by that song, because let's face it, that song kind of pushed the limits of what kind of was allowed for Disney at that point.
Yeah, well, it pushed the idea that he was both trying to do the right thing and trying not to give in to he was fighting with himself over what to do.
And it wasn't.
And that was supposed to be the tenor of the song.
And it's not something that you would see Disney really doing, because let's look at other ones. Lion King, Scar's the villain, it's very obvious.
Right.
Little Mermaid, Ursula's the villain, it's very obvious.
I had heard in the original script Ursula was actually supposed to be the sister of Poseidon or whatever his name was.
Yes, actually, officially, one of the DVD releases actually does say it. She is the sister that's pissed off that she was thrown out. But again, technically, even in the original story, she's not a villain. The Sea Witch in the story isn't a villain. She basically tells Ariel, and I can't remember what she was originally called in the story.
Triton.
You do this, and you fail, you're going to have to do this and this and this. Hey, I'm just giving you the magic to do it.
Yeah. Well, they even kind of kept that tenor, but then again, I do love that the people, the theorists have pointed out that Triton might actually, just by the story, look more like the bad guy than Ursula.
Yeah,
so
I can see that.
She might not be totally wrong for wanting to overthrow him.
She's like,
makes an entire city sing for his pleasure.
Let's face it, and I love The Little Mermaid. I grew up just going nuts over that movie. It's not a great movie.
No.
It really isn't. Ariel's a moron. The prince exists. Ursula is the most amazing thing about that movie because she gets the best. Is it me or Disney always gives the villains the absolute best songs at the point you're like, screw the hero, I just want to vote for the villain in this one?
Oh, yeah.
Well, because certainly at that era of, when they were making animations, they really wanted you to be able to identify with the villain, not necessarily sympathize with them, but to look at that villain and for him to always be he or she to be always iconic.
That is how you make a villain right.
Yes.
Well, and that's actually the problem with the remake, like with Maleficent, when they give her movie.
Yeah, but there's a perfect example. Think of the cartoon, the original animation. Do you really remember much about Prince Charming versus Maleficent?
No.
There was a Prince Charming?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Literally his name. What does that tell you? No, he had a different name, I think.
I think he did, but...
I mean, no one even cared about Briar Rose, or I forgot what they actually call her in the movie.
Aurora.
Oh, thank you, Aurora. It's like, who cares? She's boring. Just give us... Why is Maleficent doing this? Because she's a dick.
Yeah.
You forgot to invite her. She's going to be a... That is like the best villain ever. Why are you doing this? Because fuck you, that's why.
Well, and how about in the Maleficent remake where they kind of screw over the
entire plot?
The plot with the curse. Where Maleficent's the one who gave the first love's true kiss can awake her.
The only thing I kind of like about the remake, and I hate the remake so much, the monologue scene with the king and the wings, that was a really well done scene, and it looked like it was done in one shot. That was about the only scene I really enjoyed because it felt Shakespearean.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I've been sitting on a super chat here that kind of goes back to some of the problems in animation. From American Phoenix, the problem is that when we hear Apu talk, we hear what he says, but it seems that social justice warriors think that what they hear when they hear Apu talk is something along the lines of something fairly racist, like Durka Durka, Shiva Durka. What do you think on that?
It's true. That actually, there's a funny story when we first tried to kickstart the Forgotten Tune, if you don't mind me telling it.
Oh, go ahead.
So when we first tried kickstarting the Forgotten Tune and we couldn't do it, this was before Patreon and everything, I kept getting messages from people. And again, this is really the first time I had started getting into the whole what the hell is a social justice warrior and stuff like that. And people were saying at that point that she wasn't black enough. And that it threw me out. I'm like, she's not black. What? And then they were like, her voice actress is pretending to be black. And I'm like, what? I'm pretending to be black? But she's not black. And like they're like, I'm only going to donate if you make her black and get her a black voice actress. And I'm reading these and they're like, I'll only donate if you make Chandler and Weasel gay and in love and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
So even years ago, you're already starting to see this weird movement starting in its infancy.
2 years ago this happened. And yeah.
Sure thing. So you were kind of seeing the snowballing kind of halfway through its metamorphosis heading down.
So do you think Patreon's really helped with getting your comic and everything going?
Patreon is the reason the comic's being made, and we've been able to do as much as we have. I am beyond grateful to my patrons, to just everyone. I just got 200 bits. Thank you so much, Low Sanity. You just got $5. Oh, you got the Batman.
Well, that's a good question from Batman. He wonders, are SJWs ruining all forms of art? At least from my perspective, I have worked in, architecture for many, many, many years now, going on over a decade. And the kind of social progressivism that you'd see from the far left was there long before you ever heard any of these mumblings anywhere else. Because I guess you could say in architecture they have to be really far forward thinking, looking to the next 30 or 40 years. And they were already predicting 12 years ago that we would need a gender non-binary restrooms. So for me, it kind of seems like the arts have always, when you're talking like the traditional arts, not necessarily like animators or, like in the actual art community for like, traditional paintings and so on, has always been extremely far to the left. So that's why, like, when the joke is like, it's modern art, I don't get it. It's because it's not trying to appeal to the common person. It's always been trying to appeal to its insular community. It's just now we're seeing that kind of mindset has spread out to the rest of, the youth, as it were, heading into these different colleges and so on. You're seeing more of it now.
Oh, yeah. It's, are you guys seeing the collapse of comic books right now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it's sad to see,
It does make it very sad when you start seeing, like, comics go in a very SJW way, and you're like, where is this coming from? What happened to my superheroes and beating up bad guys?
I grew up reading comics. When I was younger, I was lucky enough to listen to the Shadow Radio play with my grandparents because they had some of the original records and stuff. So I grew up very much like Darkwing Duck, things like that. I grew up loving comic books, and I've always dreamed of doing comic books. And we started seeing what was going on. Me and my artist, Bosco, is a professional comic artist from Italy. And that man will bitch about comic art like there's no tomorrow, especially modern comic art. But we were starting to see what was going on in comics, and we were talking about it a lot with the fans. And one of the fans had said, well, you guys seem to have characters and you seem to want to write comics. Why don't you guys write comics? And we're getting into it. And the problem is now, and I'm not trying to sound sexist, but goddamn it, women, start learning how to write and draw comics. You make it harder for the rest of us. Every freaking time I hear a problem with comics, there's a woman involved.
You didn't like Squirrel Girl?
That's a sore spot for a lot.
You have no idea how much I hate that character.
It seems, and this is kind of like my outsider, because I got detached from comics a long time ago, mostly after like the nth time they had killed off Superman. I was like, I'm done.
Superman's dead? Is it Wednesday already?
Yeah, exactly. But as an outsider looking in, it seems like a big problem is they've been looking to people who have no real drive to make comics, but they have a agenda they want to write about.
It is.
And it just happens to be that they got hired by Marvel or DC to put pen to paper in order to create that comic.
Well, let's not forget, hold on, let's not forget that Captain America has been a Nazi since he was created in the 1940s. I want to shoot someone for that.
A friend of mine who knows a number of the guys who were some of like the big names of the 80s and 90s of
They
comics,
weren't happy about that.
he, like good friends with them, he lost his shit. He, a Marine veteran, served, did his tours of duties. Good friend of mine going on, 12 years, or no, 15 now, yeah. 15 years. He lost his mind. He's like, I'm never buying another comic again from these companies. Any comics I buy are going to be from independent artists, and I will support independent artists with interesting stories to tell, but this is just garbage. And the big reason was, for him, Captain America represented the kind of the idealistic version of an American. This guy who sits to his principles at all times. He's about truth, justice, and the American way, and that's where the buck stops.
And turning him into a Nazi was an insult.
Captain America is America's innocence. Is
exactly.
how I described it to a friend of mine, because Captain America is really important in my family. Him and Superman. And when that happened, holy shit. Have you ever seen a deaf person yelling? Because I have.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane.
So do you think that DC's handling it better than Marvel when it comes to trying to keep the core fan base and what these heroes are?
Not anymore. They're hiring people now. Okay, so they just did Superman, or, what was it? Action Comics 1000.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing they did right was they brought back the classic outfit for Superman. Everything else was wrong. The person that wrote that didn't understand Superman. Superman stands for hope. That is his point. He stands for hope. And they don't even know how to write that.
Oh, God. Someone just brought up American Chavez. No.
American Chavez does... See, unfortunately, she existed before all this bullshit, and she was a good character.
Okay.
And then... See, this is what I've noticed.
It seems to be a trend. It's like, oh, we found this kind of slightly obscure character, and we're going to pawn it off to someone that's got an agenda. Oh, we're going to have to cancel the series now.
Did you ever notice how, did you see what just recently happened? They announced Steven Spielberg is going to do a Blackhawks comic, or a Blackhawks movie. And for those that don't know what the Blackhawks is, because DC has basically buried them away, Blackhawks is a comic from World War II, where... pilots from different Allied forces got together, and they were fighting the Nazis on their own. The leader being Polish. I think one of the other big characters was French. All different.
And before you finish this, I'm just going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to just guess. They've taken the word black a little too literally, and it's going to be an entire black cast. Or...
Not if Steven Spielberg actually directs it. No way. He's going to keep it to the comic. He's been trying to do this movie since 1982.
Okay.
No. So people had a hissy fit that he's doing a movie about World War II. And I saw that. Yeah, exactly. They're like, well, he doesn't know anything about World War II. And I'm like, have you seen the amount of did you not see Schindler's List? That movie broke him.
Yeah, I was going to say that the man is old enough where his parents probably, were serving.
How many World War II films has Spielberg done?
You know what really kind of... You know why people don't seem to understand this? And I got the honor of getting to talk to him several times. I'm not kidding when I say, if you've never seen the behind-the-scenes interview about Schindler's List, it really did break him. Because that's not just a movie to him. That's his family.
Yeah,
it's some heavy. It was a very heavy film.
Very heavy topic.
I have watched it twice in my life.
I only watched it once.
It's a slog to get through, but you can't turn it off because it's just.
It's a good movie.
It's a great movie, but it just comes across as a piece of everyone's history. Yeah. It's talking to your heart about this moment in history that was just terrible, and there were terrible people, and there were good people, and there were people in between.
And there are people who just did what they had to do.
It it was a movie that you can tell they put their heart into when they made it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
He even went to those areas to do it. It's all filmed on location. Just the camps that they used, you know, was built just close enough to the real camps that he could walk over to them and look at them.
Yeah.
And again, somebody saying Save It Private Ryan. He's good with World War II because he wants to tell the story of those that are forgotten. And I understand that, especially because he lost a lot of his family during that. So did I. My great-grandparents were the only two of the entire family that survived.
Yeah.
And all I heard, like, when I heard about the Blackhawks thing, I'm like, oh yeah, he's gonna do it right because he's looking to produce and direct it. I'm like, oh yeah, he's gonna pick a Polish actor for the main character. You know he's gonna do it right. Went on to Twitter. Oh, of course he's probably gonna make black people look stupid in the movie. He's probably gonna do this. He's probably gonna side with the Nazis. And I'm reading this and I'm like, none of you people even know what Blackhawk's about, and all you're doing is just assuming shit.
Yeah, also, have they seen Save It Private Ryan?
No, none of these people actually know
they're too
anything
young.
what they're talking about.
A lot of the millennial commentators are so young, they weren't really even born when some of this stuff was being made, or they were just, you know, a few years of age and don't remember. Also, it seems like, you know, at least on the far left side, and this goes back to some of the issues maybe with, you know, animation in general, is all they want to do is completely stay focused on their vision of the future, but they refuse to ever stop and look back and go, hey, are we repeating any of the mistakes of the past?
We are.
It's this, and it's that absolutism. It's that absolute mentality where it's like, oh no, my vision of the future is the absolute most correctest, and I'm going to do what I have to do. And they can't stop and take a breather and go, hey, well, we see about 40 years someone else attempted this and it didn't go over so well. You know, we still want to move towards this. Maybe we should try a different tactic, or maybe we should try, you know, talking to people outside of our little sphere.
Well, one of the things, the reason the way I think the way I do is I went to military school, and even before that, I was honored to get to talk to 4 different Holocaust survivors. And trust me, that isn't easy to hear their stories and then talk to them.
No, it's not. I was in a military school in Germany when my mother was serving.
See, one of the things we learned from one of the survivors was she said, no, don't blame the Germans for what happened. A lot of them didn't agree with it.
Yeah, they were in between a rock and a hard place. If they spoke up, they'd be killed. Yeah, you know. So
well, let's tend to forget this kind of thing. They just want to blame everyone. And another thing we got to do was, when I was in military school, we got to listen to a survivor from Iwo Jima. And I'll tell you what, I never saw my sergeant majors run out of the room fast enough than that. They could not be in there to hear his stories.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to...
One of my old roommates, his grandfather, who I got to meet before he passed away, was one of the pilots of the second plane, not the pilot, but one of the bomber crew on the second, the second plane. So Enola Gay. Yeah. I can never remember the two names. So he was one of the crew on that, and he was livid because when I met him, it was just shortly after people were calling for us to apologize to Japan for bombing them in World War II. And he was going on this long tirade like, hey, I agree. You and your crew did what was right at that time. It ended the war and prevented it from being a protracted, long slog that would have ended in a lot more loss of life on both sides. Yeah,
and I think even Japan kind of understood that now. That's why they were just kind of like, you don't have to apologize.
Well, yeah.
If it was recalled,
Japan probably
it was from Americans.
Well, Japan's probably going, we're sorry we suicide bombed you before you even attacked us.
Yeah, there's a whole thing with that one.
It's like, so, yeah, it was kind of on both sides here.
Yeah.
Well, like, people assume that all soldiers on both sides are evil. And have you ever played Battlefield 1?
I did. Battlefield 1, yeah, that's an interesting game. I've got through part of the story campaign, but my membership to the EA thing ran out. I didn't feel like paying.
You know the scene, the opening scene when you're playing the single player where you're seeing all the bombings and stuff like that, and then you just see the two soldiers looking at each other, they're the only ones left, and instead of fighting, they just drop their weapons and turn and walk away. That's a perfect sum up for war. They don't want to be there. They don't want to hurt. They don't want to kill each other. They have no reason to do it. They're just doing it because they know it's to protect their lands, or what they think will protect their lands. Soldiers don't want to do this kind of thing. They're not evil, and people are just like, all Germans are evil because of World War II. All Russians are evil because of whatever war they started. They keep doing that shit. Yeah, we know. We blame them for communism. They're evil enough.
Yeah.
But people, they've got to stop assuming this stuff, and cartoons and shit doesn't teach people, kids anymore, not to look at everyone differently. It's all like, everyone's the same, just look at their race.
Yeah, the best example of soldiers not wanting to fight, the World War I, the soldiers that stopped on Christmas Eve to celebrate Christmas together.
Yeah, the Christmas miracle.
And then they wouldn't fight the next day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because we're all the same.
Yeah, we're still all, at the end of the day, we're all human. Granted, there's very few people we would look at and go, no, he absolutely deserves to die. We can think of some certain monsters in history.
I mean, Aeneas Arcesian's getting up there, but that's kind of mean.
Yeah. But I mean, like, people that legitimately are evil are very few. I mean, there are some, there's sociopaths, you look at, like, Hitler, the epitome of who we would consider, like, an evil individual, as a lot of people hold up. But most people are just, they're doing what they think is right, and oftentimes, as the old saying goes, the road to hell is laid in good intentions.
Well, not to mention, for the Japan apology thing, Japan, if they demanded apology from the U.S., they might have to give an apology to China for some of the stuff they did.
Yeah.
And China's gonna go right back at them too. Let's not start that. Have you seen what Poland's doing with Germany right now?
Yeah, the base Poland is based.
Oh, I love that. I'm like, and now like all the other ones around them are joining in. I think that's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
But someone just made a point of it. A lot of soldiers won't talk about what they did during wars because it's awful and they don't want to think about it. People think it's so easy for them to go off and kill someone, to do this. Like, it's like with cops. People people are like, oh, cops can just kill someone. It's easy. And I'm friends with a couple of cops, and I know one of them that had to kill someone, and they didn't, they had no choice. It was do that or someone was going to die. You have no idea how much that fucks up a person. Even with therapy, they're never the same person again because they're never going to forget that face.
Yeah. My mother's a veteran from serving in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and it was years later after she had retired that I finally got to hear most of what happened to her when she was serving. And when she told me, she just kind of like, it was just one night. It was the year before I headed off to college.
Drunk.
And she like grabbed the nearest couple, 12-pack and was like, okay, I'm going to tell you some of the horrors that happened to me there because I need you to understand why I'm so fucked up. Because she went through a real long PTSD. She's fine now, but it's one of those things. There was a long road to healing.
Yeah.
She witnessed an entire city being razed to the ground, and her commanding officer, and because she was the second in command of her platoon, was standing there like grinding his teeth saying, there's nothing we can do. And she was ready to grab the troops and just roll in there and, lay down, some, boot to ass, because it was an entire village of just innocent, civilians being wiped out, and they couldn't do anything.
And that's the problem. One of my best friends was in the Afghan war that just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And before he went, he was always funny, playful, joking around, very protective, but just an awesome guy. When he came back, he was different. He tried to be the same, and he told me this one day, if he hadn't had his son, he would have killed himself.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
And they don't get help, which is another issue. Like, when he went to a psychiatrist, because, they can see one, the first thing the psychiatrist told him was, oh, you're fine, just go re-enlist and that'll help you.
Oh, yeah, that helps.
I'm like, no, that's going to be the exact opposite of helping.
Yeah, unfortunately with my mother, it's part of her healing was to become a veteran service officer. So now she's the head of the VA for a couple counties here in Minnesota. And every now and then, we'll have something planned, and she calls me up and like, hey, I'm going to have to cancel because one of my veterans that got back from, Afghanistan or, wherever else in the world where we're currently engaged in active combat hasn't reported in, and there's been a couple times where, you know, there's been funerals afterwards, and it's always rough. And she's always pushed them to, if you don't want to see a psychologist, you come in to me, you know, I'm a fellow soldier, tell me, you know, I'm willing to listen. I'll lock the door, turn off the phone. If you need an hour of my time, if you need 3 hours of my time, my door's always open. And it's, even then it's tough, because a lot of veterans, even when it's amongst their own, you know, their brothers and sisters in arms, they don't want to relive that moment, even though they really do, in some cases, need to get some of that weight off their shoulders and share that burden.
Yeah, really all you can do is try to listen and try to be there and be understanding. I mean, I did that up until my friend moved to Texas, and thankfully, you know, he's with his wife and with his kid, and that's helping him a lot, and I'm grateful.
Right.
But I told him, man, if you ever need me, I will be there on a plane tomorrow. Yeah.
And unfortunately for, you know, for those of us that, you know, haven't served, really all we can do is just listen, because we're never going to really... We're never really going to understand what they really went through.
We'll understand it. We play war games. I actually had someone say that to my friend when he was in stream with me. The guy was serious. That's the sad part. He wasn't trolling. He actually did say that, and he meant it.
Oh, Jesus.
Right?
Yeah, that's a mindset I never thought I'd hear.
Man, we went way off topic. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. That's, you know, that's the nice thing about these sort of informal interviews. You know, they go where they need to go, and we talk how we want to talk. So, kind of getting us back onto topic, given that you cover some, you know, less than advertiser-friendly games, let's say.
I like the porn. What?
Yeah, exactly. Do you find it has had any sort of negative effects on your channel? I know you censor. I know you censor your content when it's adult content, at least for, you know, what's available on your channel.
I do my censoring.
Right.
Yes.
Does that still? Do you feel? Because I've seen a few of the larger YouTubers mention the idea that they feel like there's some sort of YouTube blacklist, where channels that aren't meeting this white bread, you know, filtered content of, you know, puppies and kittens, and they fall outside of this specific, you know, if they're in these certain genres or they're covering any certain topics, they feel like their channel is being punished for just getting that information out there. And I imagine it's not like you're putting porn on the site. You are censoring things as you should, and you're just putting it out there. You're not, right. And well, but you're not advertising this to kids. You're going, this is an adult game, adults only.
Yeah. Oh, even if you use the age restriction, I put up a video for, what was it, my year anniversary? I think it was last year. For it, I did a game called Magic Shop, and everything was censored. I got a community strike for saying, "Put that cock in me." Do you know how many times I've had to say that in a video, and that's what got me a community strike? There's definitely a blacklist going on YouTube. I'm part of it. Even my tame channel's part of it. It happens. I can censor till the cows come home. I can cut out the sex scenes, which I've done. I will still get the yell. I put up a video of my puppy when I first brought her home, and it was considered not advertiser friendly. And even when I put it in for review, and again, it's just a little tiny puppy walking around, you know, being cute, they still said it was not advertiser friendly.
A puppy.
A puppy.
Really?
And what made me laugh was I was talking to a friend of mine who has kids, and he leaves the ads on and all that, and he's in the car driving one day, and his kid, I think 5 years old or something, not even, was watching some little kid video on YouTube, and the ad pops up, and this is all he hears is, oh, and he looks, he's like, he's driving, and he's trying not to hit a tree. He's like, the fuck? And it was a condom commercial on a kid's thing.
Jesus.
And I'm like, okay, they can moan and do that, but I can't make a joke about dicks.
Well, you know, that's the difference. You know, we're using their site; they're paying to be on the site.
Yeah.
They're more than I imagine. If Pornhub walked up to Google and said, "We will pay you $100 million to advertise for the next, 2 years or whatever," they would bend over at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
Jeez, don't even mention Pornhub. I've spent months trying to get monetized on there. According to them, I don't do porn. I'm just
so
like,
you can't.
not seen my videos? Oh no, those are cartoons.
And yet the hentai channels
hentai
can get
on there.
monetized.
So they're like, yeah, we'll put ads on there. We'll keep taking the money. I'm like, all right, I'm not putting any more videos on here. I'll go find somewhere else.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, chat's bringing up another good thing over here. What do you think about, like, given the problem a lot of us have with just getting some ads, even though we admit we have adult content sometimes.
Yeah, if there's something that we feel is adult, we'll flag it as adult.
What do you think about those the people who abuse the rating system with YouTube and make those creepy the creepy Elsa and like Spider-Man videos who still get advertising and make money?
That shit creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing, and yeah, that stuff's been insane. I laughed because I'm doing a game right now that actually has Elsa in it, and I put Elsa, just the name Elsa in the tag, immediately not advertiser friendly.
Mm-hmm.
What I think YouTube should do is they have YouTube Kids, so just make YouTube adult and let us do that, or just let us get monetized when we use the age restriction, and everyone will use the age restriction. They won't give a shit. You have it on there. Why can't we monetize it? Because you still put commercials. I know for a fact they still put commercials on that. But yet, we don't get to see any of the money?
Well, do you think that the YouTube really should just do, like, tiered commercials, like, obviously, the condom commercials and things like that? That's what you put on the stuff that's flagged as adult only. And then, like, the kids can have the commercials for, like, I don't know, Red Bull or Kraft Mac and Cheese or something.
Yeah. I think they should do that, or they should let us, pick. Yeah, I agree. We should be able to do that where we can pick and make a YouTube. Like, they would make so much money if they just did, like, a section of YouTube and they called it, like, YouTube Adult or YouTube Mature. Think about how many more adults would be using YouTube. But YouTube just has this thing where we have to be kid-friendly, but you have the kids section. Doesn't matter. It's not kid-friendly enough.
Yes.
Yeah, that kind of threw me when they started saying that, but because my immediate thought was, well, maybe it's time YouTube split the difference. Like, there's YouTube Kids, two entirely separate sites. None of this you have to toggle anything. I mean, like, you have to literally log into a separate site for YouTube Kids.
Well,
and then they could be far more, selective, far more checking of the videos through algorithms or whatever they need to be, and be far more harsher. And I bet they would pull in just a ton of money that way.
Well, YouTube has...
And they could be more loose on the regular YouTube.
YouTube has the same problem that a lot of marketers have, like, in their brains. They think marketing to kids is the best thing to do. You don't make as much money.
Yeah,
and a
kids
lot
aren't
of
the ones
marketers
buying the
that have
products.
been in, like, the done it long enough will tell you, you're going to make more money with adults. Why do you think a lot of kids stuff has, a lot of the commercial stuff will have stuff for adults that they won't even notice?
It's because they're trying to get the adults, because they're assuming the adults are in the room.
But that's not always the case.
Honestly, when we put on some like specific YouTube channels for our youngest, there's like a couple toy video channels. We'll leave them locked onto that playlist or something like that. And it's just kids playing with toys. We're not going to sit there and watch that, but he finds it absolutely fascinating.
One moment. Fuck you, Magog. I don't use an answering machine anymore. I have a cell phone.
What's an answering machine?
What is this? What's this home phone thingy you speak of? What's a tape? I know kids that say that, and I want to smack them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I said it years ago. I think YouTube is trying to drive creators off so they can ultimately close down and be like, no, it's because all you creators have left. But at the same time, any other company that seems to try to make
competing.
Competing, they shut them down. Because let's face it, the whole thing with VidMe, from what I understand, was because suddenly their advertisers pulled out.
Yep.
Why do you think their advertisers pulled out?
Well, YouTube, probably, YouTube, Google AdSense being the biggest, ad revenue site out there probably is the big player. Soon as more, quote, divisive content started moving on to VidMe, I imagine that played into it. The other aspect was, for VidMe, though, was they weren't ready on the server side for what would happen when trying to host content like that. I mean, ultimately, I think if Google's going to have any real competition, a company like Microsoft would have to step into the ring and set up a video hosting service.
Or if Amazon made theirs a little bit easier to get on.
Right.
Yeah,
like,
I even tried for that for like the animations and stuff, and they're like, no, this won't work on our thing. I'm like, really?
Weird. They allowed me to almost post. The only reason I'm not on there is they want subtitles for everything.
Yeah.
Really?
Like, they
'Cause
have-
I was gonna go put. Oh, I wonder if the subtitles in my adult games would work.
Yeah, that was the stopping point for us. Is otherwise we would be on video
Yeah, that
hosting
is
service.
kind of insane.
Well, and ultimately it came down. It's like, oh, we should put up our all our streams on there. You know, like
let's subtitle everything. Oh.
Well, and our typical stream's 2 hours long. It's just I'm not sitting
Subtitle
there.
that.
I'm not paying someone to sit there and subtitle for me because I can't even begin to imagine the cost.
Have you ever seen how broken? Speaking of that, have you ever seen how broken the YouTube translating thing is?
Oh God,
God,
yes. It's not as bad as the OBS auto translator. That one's hilarious. Sometimes I'll leave it on just for the wonky subtitle translations because it'll come up like a bacon rubber baby back. You know, it's just nothing even remotely close to what anyone said.
I watched one day, my artist did a podcast with a friend, and they were making fun of some video of a kid in Italy, because they're Italian, and the translation came out to, I want to fuck that kid, and I showed it to him, and he goes, no, that's not what we say.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's the wrong translation there.
Yeah, he showed it to his friend, and his friend couldn't stop laughing. Like, all of the translations were so bizarre. I'm like, I don't think it understands Italian because it keeps wanting him to do bad things to children.
Google's been doing too many deep dives into bad places on the internet, apparently.
Like, have you seen the kind of stuff they allow on... I figured out how to put my... Like, I was testing out the whole YouTube Kids thing back when, you know, they were just changing it. And a fan and I were doing this. We figured out how to get my censored adult stuff on the YouTube Kids.
Oh, Jesus.
Have you seen the stuff that you can find on there? That is not kid-friendly.
Yeah, we have to... We routinely monitor what our kids are
Oh, you don't want them
going
to see queer kid stuff?
Oh, God, no.
No.
Oh, that makes me so mad
yeah.
I can't believe that show.
It makes... as a parent, it's very... aggravating. It's like, they're kids. Let them be kids. And when they get older, that sort of stuff will sort itself out.
Well,
wherever they go.
It's like the episode of Queer Kid stuff with the drag queen. Little kids, okay, if you live in San Francisco, fine. Have that talk with your kid because your kid might see that. And they might have questions as to what they're seeing.
I have floppy disks. Shut up. Sorry.
But other than that, most children don't need to know this information till adulthood.
Or at least, late teens, there would... Because there's going to come that point where, their sexual tastes are starting to develop. And they're going to start
to get the idea
about
this.
Yeah. Well,
it's okay.
we have
they'll
3
find
kids.
my channel. They'll be fine. Or more.
We have 3 kids. So, I mean, there's going to come a point... There's going to come a point where our kids are going to start going, hey, I'm into girls, I'm into boys, whatever. You can either, you can either try to ram these sort of ideas down kids' heads early, which I think is wrong. I mean, look at, like, what is that, Lactatia kid?
Oh, that kid's gonna... I hate to say it, that kid's going to kill himself.
It's so disturbing to see. It's like he is a mouthpiece for someone else's ideology. He isn't actually... I can't imagine that kid is actually that way.
No,
not
of
by any
course
stretch.
not.
His mother just is the one I believe 100% is pushing him to it.
Well, here's the problem. The thing about the kids who their parents say they're transgender at like 5. What happens when they become teenagers and they go, no, I'm not?
And have already been, and if some people have their way, have already been subjected to hormone therapy.
Have you seen how most of those kids look absolutely miserable? It's a form of abuse.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing. Like when you mentioned, if you're gonna introduce your kid to a drag queen, make it a good-looking one and not a terrifying one, like on that queer kid stuff. Also, thank you for the subscription, Vic. I remember one of my nephews. What was it? They went with my uncle to some kind of car show or something. There was a drag queen there. And you could not tell this dude was actually a guy. Like this drag queen looked perfect like a woman. No one cared. Like the kid
No.
walked over. It was a friend of my uncle's. Walked over and, oh, she's so pretty. My little nephew, oh, she's so pretty. And we're laughing because we know.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. You don't have to tell the kid, oh, that's really a dude. Just, yes, sweetie. Isn't she pretty? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you get. Most drag queens are so nice. They don't care. They'll just be like, oh, aren't you darling, sweetie? They're not going to be like, I am really a guy. They'll just be like, oh, you're the sweetest little thing.
Yeah.
Oh, honey, you are fabulous.
Yeah. Oh, you're so cute. I got a compliment. Okay. They're not
exactly.
Gonna be
Most people, actual normal people, want to keep kids innocent. A kid will say something stupid because it's a kid. They don't know how to control themselves. Parent will get embarrassed, but most people will just laugh. Because, oh, it's a kid. He doesn't mean what he's saying. I'm going to kill you, Magog.
I don't think you can kill a cross-dimensional wizard.
I will get a chaotic witch and that'll take care of it.
Just get a good old-fashioned lawful good paladin.
There
otherwise known as awful good.
Anybody get a paladin I can hire? I need to get rid of a wizard.
That was always my favorite class to play, an awful good paladin. I am here at the behest of Helm. Are you all followers of Helm? No. Thank you. I'll be returning in 24 hours with the rest of my people.
Oh, good. We got a paladin. Batman's going to be a paladin. You can't win against Batman, man. You got to give up. Batman always wins. We've seen the comics.
Yes.
Yep.
And if he doesn't, he finds a gun, so you're screwed anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Off of the less, serious SJW content nonsense, what things have inspired you in your work with comics and animation? Aside from like Disney, is there any specific eras of comics or novels or even cartoons that really, when you saw them, like, oh, that's it. I need to take some of this to add it to my own self and my own style of art.
So you'll notice with the comic and the art that we usually use, it's a very Warner Brothers-esque, like 1930s, 1920s style. My artist, not my animator. My artist is a former Warner Brothers comic artist, and he's huge with drawing. His goal is to draw all of the Looney Tunes characters, even like the old ones that people have forgotten. So that's how I kind of met him. And I'm really into like anywhere from the 1920s to like the 1950s. I like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the noir style stuff. Like one of our characters is just straight up called the Detective.
Nice.
Because why not have a detective? And she dresses in the old style. The Shadow is another one that really inspired me because I grew up listening to the show Darkwing Duck because you gotta love the Duck, man.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I heard they're doing a reboot of him.
For the new series, that new DuckTales. If it's not the original voice, I don't care. You can't beat Jim Cummings. You can't. I'm sorry. Nobody's as good as he is.
Oh yeah, you can't beat the originals. It's like what they want to redo the Animaniacs. It's like
I suppose if Disney being Disney, assuming the voice actor is still alive.
Oh yeah, he is. He's doing Winnie the Pooh and stuff right now.
Oh yeah, they'll probably just walk up and go, "Here's a fat load of stacks.
Come back.
Come back."
Oh, he would. He loves Darkwing Duck. He would come back in a heartbeat for it. The voice actor for Launchpad wanted to come back for the reboot, and I remember hearing the story and it made me sad. The director of the show wouldn't even call him. They had to get, one of the help to call him. And the poor woman that calls him goes, "If it helps, you're the best Launchpad there is. I wanted to see you do it." I'm like, oh, sweetie.
That's rough.
Oh.
Man, that bites when you hear stories like that. It's like with the, mind you, I had no interest in seeing the reboot. When they rebooted the Powerpuff Girls, they didn't even call the original voice actresses, which I thought was like, second I heard that, I'm like, oh, that's not a good sign.
The show is, a friend of mine made me watch Powerpuff Girls. I tried to kill him. And I wasn't even a fan of the original, but damn, what is that?
Yeah, I've heard it's nothing but a garbage fire.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, so the new Scrooge, somebody mentioned, I like David Tennant's new Scrooge. I'm not a huge fan of the new DuckTales because it's very obvious, because the director of it is somebody from Gravity Falls, which I like Gravity Falls, but it's very obvious they're just doing another Gravity Falls type of thing, which kind of makes me sad because I liked like Don Rosa's Scrooge stuff, and again, nerd of older comics and animation. very heavy into classical type stuff, so the comic and a lot of the animations you'll see it, like the Forgotten Toon, the style that we picked because of our animator is entirely done in the early or late 70s to 80s style of Disney animation. When, you know, the stuff was breathtaking.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And the people at Disney said no one wants to see that anymore.
Really? I find it so hard to believe. I honestly, I think it's I'm sure you have bigger insider info than I have ever come across, but of the people I've talked to who've been in the industry in the past, it sounds like Disney has really tried to move away from doing. They're trying to do as little animation as possible with this, or more. They're trying to do as much animation as possible with as little staff, so they try to cut as many corners as possible with that animation in the style, in the aesthetic, in the backdrop. So a lot of stuff has become CG cartoon stuff, which I mean that's a thing that's prevalent in many of the, like even in anime, you're starting to see that more, where you're starting to see CG instead of actual.
I thought that was the
drawing.
Pixar effect.
It's not the Pixar effect.
Yeah, no, the Pixar has a very specific aesthetic.
It's because old school cell style, two S words, sorry. It's very expensive to do. Now, we did the Forgotten Toon. If you actually see it, the entire background was hand-painted by a Disney background artist, because my animator is amazing. We did it in cell style. It's very expensive to do that, and it's very time-consuming. And I'm not saying anything mean about those that do CGI. Y'all suck, but I'm not being mean. It's thought of to be cheaper and easier. It's just
no, it's time consuming.
Yeah, it is. It's very time consuming. You can make it look like old style animation. It's not easy, but you can do it.
Even then, it's very rarely successful. Like I said, I got out of film and TV almost as quickly as I possibly could after my experience out working on the TV show pilot.
Well, you've seen
I got
The
into
Little Mermaid,
architecture,
right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That has CGI in it.
Oh yeah.
It can look very good, but you also have to remember, you're right, they do want to do this with as little staff as possible, because they have some great animators and artists working for them, both Disney and Warner Brothers and others. They don't utilize them enough.
Oh yeah, I mean, look at the classic DC or the DC cartoons. You know, Batman the animated series, Superman the animated series, Batman and Superman animated series. Those were very well done and done by hand. What drew me as a kid into the Batman the animated series wasn't so much that it was Batman, which I mean that when I was a kid that definitely played a big part of it, but I got drawn into the aesthetic. The fact that the entire first 2 to 3 seasons were all hand painted on black paper.
Oh yeah, they did an amazing job with that.
You don't get that sort of style anymore, except like in certain like indie markets.
Yeah.
And even then, you know, they're limited to the fact that it might just be them or them and a friend or a couple other people, and they can only pump out an episode maybe once every 4 or 5 months. And as a result, you've seen, like, with all the algorithm changes on YouTube, those channels are dying. You know, there's no incentive anymore for those channels to really push forward, because no one's finding their work anymore, because, you know, they may only do like a 5-minute episode, because that's, you know, it takes a long time to animate 30 frames, or, well, if you're doing traditional 2D animation, 24 frames per second. Oh, you know, so you have, what is that, 60 times 24 a minute, and then you take that over 5 minutes. That's a lot of hand drawing to do.
All right, can you handle him too? We have a question in chat for you, Purity. Right. Do you think CGI is overused these days? It's even being used in comic books now.
Definitely. The problem with CGI is, and if you've ever seen it, they just did a new Batman movie with Harley Quinn. It's done in the old Batman animated style. You can very much tell it's CG, because, and as much as I love, and I've seen very good CG, I should definitely say that, there's a very big difference if you look at cell animation versus CG. Yes, CG can look smoother, but the thing about cell animation is that's kind of why cell animation is better, because you have those mistakes, you have this feeling of people put more heart into it, if that makes sense. And I know I'm probably going to get comments of people that do CGI. I put enough heart into it. It's, if you've ever worked, like I said, when I was in animation courses and we had to work with both CGI, which is very early back then, and cell animation. A lot of people, even those that were doing CG, would have more fun doing the cell animation because, yeah, you'd mess up a cell. Oh, definitely. You're going to mess up like 100, 200 cells.
Yeah.
And those are crazy expensive. But when you do it right, you've just hand-drawn this. Yeah, you've got to do it like 50, 60 more times, but you have something in your hand that you can hold up and go, I made this. I painted this by hand. I spent 6 hours working on this. This is mine.
So what do you think of like the new films? Like I know Coco, that new one from Disney was Disney Pixar was, it looked like mostly it was CG. Yeah, but that was more stylized. Do you think CG works better when it's more stylized, like in a in with the examples of like Coco versus like when they try doing CG and you get the unfortunate like uncanny valley effect of people?
I love the uncanny valley effect. I think CGI can work really well, again, when you're right, when it's done in its own stylized way, when somebody's trying something different. It's like with stop motion animation, which is one of my favorite things to play with, because I like puppetry and stuff. It's just something that when done right, it's unique, it's memorable. I've not seen Coco yet, but I know it was, from everything I've heard, it's really gorgeous, and it's Pixar. Pixar usually never disappoints. We don't talk about cars. I know for Moana, originally, it was going to be hand-drawn because it was done by the director of, I think, Hercules or Little Mermaid. And what they ended up doing, and I understand they ultimately made it CGI because of all the water effects, because drawing that would be an absolute nightmare that most animators will shoot themselves over.
I can imagine running water's gotta be a bit of a pain in the ass.
No idea. Especially when it's got to be moving certain ways and stuff. If it's a simple movement and stuff, then it's fine. But what they ended up doing was all of the tattoos that you see that are moving are all hand-drawn. And I think that went really well for them. It was a nice touch that really brought back the original. They were cell-drawn, old-style CGI, or animation. And I think that worked. The movie wasn't the greatest, but it gave a unique flair that you don't see that much anymore.
Yeah. So you're saying you think it's better when it's like CGI mixed with cell, and CGI for obviously certain things like running water or things that animators just have a harder time capturing, but cell for all the nice smaller details that really make the film feel right.
Yeah, like you'll see it a lot in anime. You'll see like a lot of hand-drawn, and you'll see CGI put in. And
yeah,
sometimes
like vehicles is pretty common.
Beautifully, and sometimes it's just you can't stop laughing.
Yeah, sometimes it's just painfully obvious. So, I can't remember what anime I was watching, but it's all hand-drawn unless the characters are doing any, like, major quick activities. Then suddenly all the characters become CG, and it's so
I've noticed
jarring.
that too lately.
Yeah, it becomes very jarring because you get really used to a certain aesthetic, and then all of a sudden it's like, what's going on here? Like, I get it when it's like, oh, they're in, it's easy to get out of that, jarring effect when they're gone through like a transformation sequence and now they're in like a big suit or a mech, something that's mechanical. And then it's like, okay, that inorganic thing is not in the same aesthetic as the rest of everything else.
I kind of forgive it when it's like a giant Gundam in CG, like a CGI Gundam, because that kind of makes a little more sense. But I think also Japan's still kind of playing around with the CGI and hand-drawn together. But at least they're willing to do it. Like, I know they did it a little bit for Gravity Falls. I was actually surprised when I learned all of South Park up until a couple of years ago was all cell animation.
Well, actually, South Park, aside from what a couple's first seasons, actually went into using Maya, and all the animation was done in a very similar style to what had been done, in that they actually created custom sliders, custom, I'm trying to think. Basically, they created a lot of the characters in 3D, but they created their own custom effects and custom shaders, custom tools
stylized.
to stylize it so it looked almost identical and kept it that way. And they still hand animate most of the stuff to keep that same aesthetic.
Yeah, South Park has done an amazing job. They can just get an episode out in 6 days. That's amazing. I love South Park. I've always loved them.
That's got to be rough on the animators, though. I've had projects in architecture where it's like, hey, we're throwing everything out, and
You have 5 days.
You've got.
Well, they
the
say
architects
that
have
say
to.
that they're giving them 6 days, but I think they're already working on it as soon as they finish the other one because they've got the script and everything. It's just that they can work that quickly, which is amazing. Their animators know what they're doing.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a method to the madness where, even in architecture, even in the worst crunch periods I've ever had, everything's delegated. The architects are coming up with the plans. As soon as those get done, they get sent off to the next guy for, going over. You have the interiors department. They're setting up the layouts for the interiors. And then everything kicks over to me. I model it out in 3D and then kick out the renderings and then start doing the polish. If it's a particularly hard crunch time, I'm kicking off my raw renders off to someone else to do the Photoshop polish, touch-up stuff before it goes out to the client.
So what do you prefer better than Purity for animating faces? Do you like the new trend of CG, or do you prefer like the hand-drawn?
Have you seen the faces in cartoons right now? They're so big. All right. Ant Baldwin in your chat is a CGI animator. I want to ask him a question for a minute that goes with this. As a CGI animator, how much do you hate how simplistic they've made faces? Because if you look at stuff like Steven Universe or anything on Cartoon Network right now, all of the faces are completely simplistic. Like, if I can, I'd like to share an image in your Discord that maybe you can put up on the screen.
Yeah,
sure. Give me 2 seconds. Ahead. I'm going to show you what we did for the Forgotten Toon, like a finished image. And if you look at this versus, again, give me a second. This is being slow as can be. Versus what you see in animation right now. Can you not freeze up, computer? Please? Computer, no freeze. Thank you. No? Why are you not working?
Well, yeah, but then again, I guess maybe they'd go simplistic because, what was it? The first one I ever really saw it in was Polar Express.
Oh,
when they tried too hard to make the faces lifelike.
I can tell you what happened
and
with
it ended up being more terrifying for little kids.
And I know why. I know why that. Yep, that's exactly it. We had some of the crew from that animation house come to the college I was studying at the time, and what ended up happening was they had made these super hyper realistic looking faces and characters for the most part, but they were putting through some very not realistic situations, with some of the effects, and then they mocabbed all of the facial animations, which isn't perfect because I hate mocap too, except for like walk cycles in computers. The thing with mocabbing the face is there are a lot of subtleties in your face that are caught with the muscles that happen even when you're talking.
Yeah.
That the computer, short of spending like hundreds and hundreds of hours adding the individual muscles and having them connected to very specific, draw points, you're never going to capture that subtlety in an effective way. It is always going to come across as really, really disturbing, and you're going to get that uncanny valley effect. It's always better when you're animating a face to just do it by hand, because if you're doing it by hand, you're avoiding the uncanny valley effect. The little one just got out of the bath. I can hear him. You can hear that, or you can see that uncanny valley because it's just close enough that it feels like it should be right, but it doesn't reach it because it's not it's not capturing all those subtle movements in your muscle structure in your face.
Well, they try to do that a lot with video games, and it usually ends up hilarious. Like, we just did Horizon Zero Dawn and a game called Hidden Agenda, and they tried doing motion capture. And the problem with motion capture is if somebody moves their eyes or something like that and they're not supposed to and it gets caught in the games, it's gorgeous. Like, out of nowhere, one of the characters just seemed to have a seizure. He kept twitching and stuff, and we're like, are you okay?
I also really like when they try to do animation scripting. I played through like half of the campaign of Mass Effect Andromeda before the patches.
Oh, please excuse me, I have autism.
Yeah, excuse me, my face is tired.
I've seen so much video of that, and I'm just like,
yeah.
I feel bad for whoever had to do that motion capture. I hope they don't put that on their resume.
The thing is they didn't do a lot of motion capture on that. They tried to write an automated script.
Oh, why would you do that?
They tried to come up with a script that would automate all of the animations. So for certain characters, they would, like do hand animation on, like the core character, basically the core party. They did hand animation for, but everyone else they tried to do, specialized, scripts that would do the animations for them to sync up with the voice. So it was like AEIOU. It would have that programmed in there. But it was a poor script, so that's why a lot of the facial animations are just so fucked in that game.
That's when we got the autism faces. By the way, I put in the general chat the image I was talking about.
Oh, let me bring that up. Oh, wow, that's very very cool.
We're actually selling a T-shirt of that. That's from our animator. That's what it would have looked like if we had more than 15 days to do this.
All right.
But you can see by the face once you put it up.
Yep, it's up now.
There's a lot of expression, and I can show you other stuff that we do. We even have like a couple of comics that I think are on this computer. It's slight and people don't seem to understand this, especially when you're doing animal characters. The ears, moving the ears with the emotions, like even the slightest of face things, means a lot when you're doing animation. Like we just did a comic, like a short little comic as a joke. Because people like to say that the detective looks like a guy. So we had our unicorn Lily ask her why she always looks like that. And we had the responses done with Lily's ears. Like you can see them down when she's scared and things like that. And people like that. It's something that's so trivial that people don't take it into effect till it's gone. And then they're like, there's just something wrong with this animation. What's wrong with it? You gotta, that's what I think the main issue with animation now is. You only get like those big wah faces and things like that. You don't get the subtlety faces that are needed. It's either big mouth surprise or big
what was
eye
it
shock.
my teacher used to call it? It's the in-betweens. A lot of animation these days are lacking good in-between artists. Someone that can add, basically someone who's dedicated to sit there and go, okay, here's your primary artist. He's going to do all the keyframes. So every 24th or 12th frame, if there's something very specific he wants to capture at that point. And then a crew of people to just sit there, all right, here's the movement cycle between that frame and this frame to capture all that. And keyframing, very underrated, but without those dedicated artists, at Disney doing the keyframes, we wouldn't have the just gorgeous animations we have from that era when they were doing all the old cell animations. Oh, yeah. And with CG, and I'm guilty of this, but I'm not a CG animator. I do modeling. I don't do the animation. I'm very guilty of this. It's very easy to just let the computer extrapolate out all your all your in-between frames. Okay. It's very easy just to tell the computer, it's like, all right, here's starting point A, here's the end point B, and in between, or like so end point C, and then in between I've got a B point, and the leg is supposed to be this high up. You do the work for me. I don't got time for this shit. And you see it a lot. And then also, now I've noticed in animation companies, and animation's beginning to be like this too on, and this is a problem, architectural renderings is becoming an issue now. It's been an issue. It's not as much now, weirdly, and I have some theories on that, but it's not for this conversation. China has been a big CG rendering house for years. And now you're starting to see animation houses in like traditional cartoon animation houses. All they'll do is they'll come up with their keyframes and they ship them off to China, and they just cross their fingers and hope the artists in China are going to come up with something decent for the animation. I was watching someone's breakdown on the animation process of Steven Universe. That's a big reason why the characters look so disproportionately different from episode to episode.
No model sheets.
Yeah, that too. But they'll do their best, but they're working off of these specific keyframes, and it changes everything from time to time.
I also put in the general an image that was a promotion for the comic, and you can see, because you had asked what my big inspiration is, and that's supposed to be a 1920s speakeasy.
Very nice.
Assuming it loads up like it's supposed to.
But
come on.
Again, somebody had mentioned Fletcher animation in the chats. I am a huge fan of Fletcher animation, and what pissed me off the most was when the game journalist went after Fletcher without understanding him. Another one, I had to do an entire thesis on Fletcher animation. So if you ever want to see me go nuts, say Fletcher was a racist.
No, jeez.
He
Uh,
that pissed me off because again, here's something that nobody seems to understand. He was the first one to give a female character the spotlight. Betty Boop.
Oh yeah.
And the singer, the male singer that you usually see with her, he was black.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a big like he was famous back then, and it was the first time like we had a black guy doing animation really.
Right.
But people seem, yeah, well, that's Mage. She's actually got her own little animation called Chaotic Stories. I think it's called Don't Forget Me, or Don't Leave Me or something. Very, very sad character. One of our favorites. Her story actually made our comic artist cry. She's gonna be a fun one to do for the comic. She's a sad little character, but everyone loves her. Also, that's her in her Doctor Strange outfit. I don't know why he drew her in that. He did. But yeah, I like drawing. I like doing the stories for characters that you want to you root for, and those that you really want to hate, but you know they're there for a reason. Things that are forgotten and now.
All right, and then now speaking on business side of stuff with YouTube and your Patreon, has if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to. This is more just kind of like a curiosity question here for the audience. With your Patreon, has that allowed you to kind of cut down on the amount of hours you have to work in the day, or is that all of that right now going specifically to getting the animators paid, getting your animations worked on, and getting your comics drawn, and then you do your daytime job to pay for the other bills like your internet and other cell phone and all that other stuff?
So I don't work because due to an accident a few years ago, I was thrown off a 3-story building. Long story.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I had a psychotic friend. That's also why I'm not an animator anymore. But I couldn't work for a while. So I started doing YouTube basically to piss off an ex.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of stuff happened. And I will say I'm very grateful for Patreon and YouTube. I'm able to pay the bills because I was going to be homeless. And then, I did an adult game as a joke, and people started supporting and getting into it. And then, I started releasing characters after I started working with this artist, and people started getting into it. Well, I couldn't afford doing the comic without Patreon. We had said, after a patron suggested the comic, we put it as a goal. And I think it not even took 2 months for people to hit that goal and go beyond it. And now we're nearly done with the comic. It's going to take about, I want to say 3 months to finish it, because it's basically Bosco is doing the job of 4 people.
All right, and then for your for the comic, now are you doing kind of like the anthology comics where it's a big, thick comic, or are you doing more of like 12-issue, 12-page single issue run, and then just releasing it over time?
Well, right now what we originally planned to do was the comic was going to be in between each of the animations. Okay. And basically, last animation we did, which was about Mage, I had to do all the animating myself, which took about 6 months with very limited frames. So we did it in a storybook style. I still want to do it where it's in between each of the animations, and they fit in together to the point if it ever becomes a continuation comic. They all fit together, and we can turn the animations into like little pages of the comic. But right now, we're only doing one comic, and we're going to see if it's popular. It's just one issue, and if it's popular, we're going to keep going with the story. I've already started writing the second issue, but I want to be the type of person where my goal is I want to let the fans have feedback, and basically eventually do it to where we can hold contests where fans can write side stories and stuff like that, so that people who normally couldn't get their stuff out there will be able to have a chance. Like, and I haven't announced this, so if you don't mind, I'd like to make this a big announcement stream.
All right.
My comic book writer, most of you guys from my stream know Bosco. He's for years been working on a comic called Stunning Shock. Well, for about 6 months, an editor and a publisher was stringing him along saying, "Oh yeah, we'll finally publish your comic. We'll finally publish your comic." They didn't publish this comic. They told him nobody wanted funny comics anymore. So hearing that made me think, what were we told with the Forgotten Tune? Nobody wants to see this anymore. So I go, Bosco, how much would it cost for you to put a couple of pages of your comic in ours? And he just stared at me, and I'm like, I will pay for you to do 2 to 3 pages of a little side comic of Stunning Shock. So you can show those editors that they were wrong.
Awesome. See,
And
that's a cool way to bring some highlights to someone who you like their work.
He does amazing work, and just to have, because in Italy it's very hard to make a comic. From what I understand, they will screw over a comic artist and writer, like no tomorrow. But he couldn't believe I was willing to pay for him to do this out of my own money, and well, technically Patreon. But you guys are going to be the first ones to see Stunning Shock.
Very cool.
Also, thank you for the $20, Tazzy. I love you, honey.
Though, speaking of like people like claiming like old school cartoons are racist, what did you think about that whole Cuphead issue that came about?
One, I give so much love to the guys that did Cuphead, because that's my animation style right there, baby. That was stupid. Especially, like I said, when they started going after Fletcher would know the things that these game journalists were saying. Just if you hadn't seen my Twitter during that, I lost it. I lost my mind on that stuff. Because they were attacking animators left and right, and they're attacking the poor guys that made Cuphead, and they spent what, 5 years on that?
Oh yeah, probably longer, because that was the build time for the game, right? Was the 5 years? I imagine there was a build up from the original concept, trying to get it formulated, get
the art right,
get the art feel correct, long before they actually.
They did say that all of that art, like everything in the game, the artwork
is hand drawn.
Yeah, the artwork's hand drawn. The sound effects were done the old school style way. Like they worked hard on that game, and they deserve all the praise that we give them, because that's amazing. When I first saw that game, I was amazed by it. I actually bought a copy for my animator, and for my artist, because they both wanted to play the game. They didn't even care about the game. The animation itself. It's
absolutely gorgeous to look at.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of, like, the game itself is fun. I enjoy playing it privately when I'm not streaming. But just the animation alone, and the fact they put so much work into it, the sound effects, the music, everything. This was a work, like, straight from the heart. And then you have a bunch of game journalists who are pissed off they're not smart enough to beat a tutorial. The words are literally there right on screen, dude. You can do it in less than 20 minutes. It was like, what, 20 or 30 minutes you couldn't do it?
Didn't someone like have their 5-year-old do the tutorial and the 5-year-old beat out the game journalist?
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that's amazing. I want to see that video.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're talking about the one where the guy spent like 5 minutes trying to get through the tutorial?
The guy, spent longer than that.
No, it was like 20 minutes. The game journalist.
Like 20
minutes. He couldn't figure out how to do the thing that was right there on screen.
And it was someone else that put their child in front and said, "Here, play the tutorial," and the child went, "Okay," and beat up the game journalist's time.
It's so amazing that you can fuck up that much to the point even GameStop's mocking you.
Yeah.
Like, when it came out, I started laughing. And I don't usually like GameStop, but that was a pretty good Twitter. They're like, the hardest tutorial, even harder than Dark Souls. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's the Dark Souls of platformers.
I'm still waiting for Dark Souls to be redone.
The remaster of Dark Souls. It's the Dark Souls of Dark Souls. Drinking intensifies.
I'll go sit in the background and play Bloodborne. Thank you.
Well, yeah.
Game journalists are retarded. Yes, they are. My favorite one was the chick that got to see the opening of, what was it? Lords of Shadows 2, and she screamed it was rape.
Yeah.
And the poor devs were just looking at her like she's insane. Like, what?
Well, that to be fair, there have been crazies like that. There's a woman in Russia who believes a Pokemon raped her.
Oh, I saw that!
From Pokemon Go. It's like,
Did you see Nintendo lose their minds when people were like posting up pictures of Pokemon Go with like there was one of a Squirtle on a stripper's ass?
Oh yeah. My favorite's always the Diglett pictures. Because those guys have those guys purposely aimed their phones to get that photo.
Oh yeah. There's a Pokemon Go. One of my friends lives in Wales, and there's a Pokemon Go shop in a porn shop, or a Pokemon Go stop in a porn shop. There.
Of course. Kid, go. You want Transformers? Go watch Transformers.
Aw. Better be classic Transformers.
All right. And apparently, I'm supposed to tell you that both Draxie and Jacob say hi.
Aw. Adorable.
I don't really have anything else, unless there's, I guess you want to ask us anything with our tiny little channel
so why'd
here.
you guys decide to start the YouTube channel?
For Ren's case, boredom.
I was stuck at home, and I believe a lot of this comes to drinking. First time I thought up the idea, because I have a tendency of reading a lot of the quote-unquote mommy porn. And so I would read some of these eroticas off Kindle. It's jokingly called mommy porn because of the Kindle.
As long as it's not 50 Shades of Grey.
No, not 50 Shades of Grey.
That was painful for her to get through.
That took a...
She may live!
That took a bottle of rum to get through.
Yeah, she did 50 Shades in 50 days where she read all
parodies
of 50 Shades over the course of 50 days.
Why do you hate your wife that much?
No. She did it.
Rum.
She just did it for the drinking. I see how it is.
Yeah, she could argue. One could argue I was the one that had to suffer because I was the one that had to edit everything.
He did. But the initial channel idea was I was reading off, I forget which book it was, but it was one of them where I was just reading off the plot of because he asked what the plot was. And so I actually had to read through and figure out what the plot was because I wasn't paying attention to that. And he just said it was the most ridiculous thing he ever heard. So we decided to start reviewing it, and that's what I initially did. And I still, on occasion, review stuff. But I would occasionally just review some of these really bad eroticas that get written. Everything from women and T-Rexes to, the favorite one I did was the Velociraptor boss made me gay. That was a special one.
Okay.
There is some really terrible stuff she finds.
I mean, I do bad fanfics, and I've read one about Goku and Frank, but damn, I think you beat me out.
Yeah, there's an entire line that I only did one of. I was going to make it a series, but even it was hard for me to get through. Was stepdads and their daughters as a genre. Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. That one was, I believe after that was the point where you decided never again.
And that was a never again on that one.
Yeah, that's like me and Snow Days. I'm good.
Yeah, never did you. Oh yeah, I reviewed the Ghostbusters book.
Before the movie came out.
No, there was a book that was based off the script for the 2016 movie.
And it's just about line for line with a
and
little
it's line for little more than what was in the movie. Like the full script, not what was edited down for the movie. And I actually beat out the movie being released. For when I went out.
How much did you hate that?
She threatened to kill me.
Twice.
See, that's when you go and get the classic Ghostbusters novels, which are actually really good, and you give those to her. Because those will make her feel right. Those are really dang good.
Yes, they are.
He bought me a couple comic books that were actually
Did he get you Tobin's
decent.
Spirit Guide?
No, I
He's
believe
not
he got
a good
me
husband.
He got me like Batman and some Harley Quinn ones.
I bought her what she wanted for comics.
Yeah. I.e. Batman and Harley Quinn to go, please don't kill me.
Here you go. I'm sorry for what I did.
Yeah. But the funny thing with the Ghostbusters book was that was in the dollar bin, clearance bin, before the movie came out.
3 weeks before the movie came out?
They knew.
Yeah.
3 weeks before the movie came out, that book was in the dollar clearance bin, and he went, we'll review this. I'm like, really? Really? We're going to review this? No. I wish the only regret I have with that video is I didn't save my outtakes. Because I was recording it, I'd work on my script and I recorded it without him in the room. So I would delete my outtakes and would delete each take to redo again. And if I had saved take 2 and 3, there would have been a really nice blooper reel we could have done with just bleeps of my reaction to the book.
Oh, that's like me trying to do voice acting and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like I'm working with a voice director for a game right now, and it's a more adult game. We need you to moan a little harder. How the... And all you hear is just me go, how the do you moan harder? Well, we need you to moan like this. You need me to do what?
Yeah.
I had to do a scream take once that was so loud they actually called my neighbors, called the cops.
Oh, wow.
I had to actually show the cop the scream take, and he started, because at the end of it, you hear, because after I scream, I'm like, and I got it on tape, I'm like, oh, fuck, that was loud. And the cop just starts laughing.
It's like, oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm a voice actress.
It's like, I promise I didn't kill anyone. I'm in Florida. I can't even bury a body.
Oh, no. Well, Florida, you have gators.
Yeah, but do you really, have you ever actually messed with a gator? They never want to eat something when you want them to eat something.
Fair enough.
They're like cats.
A big cat that could bite you.
big cat.
It'd hurt you
Florida
much
panther?
worse.
Yeah.
Get some of that Gatorade.
Oh.
You go in the corner for that joke. You can definitely tell your dad.
But yeah, that's why we started. And like I said, I do fanfics here and there, and books here and there. Problem with reviewing too much eroticas is the plot lines. Sometimes for a lot of genres, take out character names, put new character names in, change place, same plot line, exact same, rinse, repeat.
It got to the point where even with the editing, I started noticing it. She had already noticed it, but it was one of those things where, you know, when you're just editing, you kind of get into this mindless, you know, zone where you're making sure it sounds right, but you're not really necessarily listening to what's going on. You're just trying to get it done, and then you go back and actually listen to the whole thing.
And then it's like, okay, this is the exact same plot line.
There were a few times I'm like, didn't you already review this book? You know, so this channel has certainly gone through a lot of changes in the 2-3 years almost, just about 3 years.
Now I think the only fanfic I review is the ones that get sent to me that are the people will write and send in their favorite YouTubers fanfic.
Oh, all right, guys. I got a challenge from my chat then. Everybody find the worst fanfics you can and stop sending them to me and send them to her. No. We're going to make you do My Immortal, Sonic High School.
We've done that.
I've done My Immortal already.
Have you done Sonic High School?
Yes.
No, I've not done Sonic.
No, you've done that one.
I have?
Oh, you remember Pippi sent you all the worst fanfiction.
I remember Pippi sent me My Immortal.
Yeah, she sent you a few that you did.
I don't think we did Sonic. I know for sure we did the Harry Potter one.
Yeah.
There's Sonic High School. Does anyone remember the one, the Hitler and Anne Frank, where Hitler goes Super Saiyan and Goku falls in love with Anne Frank? This is actually a thing that exists, by the way.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, yeah, we do it on the second channel. We do a lot of fanfics that people send us, and I do readings of actual books. I'm currently doing Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which I hate doing readings live.
Yeah, it's so hard, especially when you mess up like a word or something and you can't do a retake.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I mispronounced this. Oh, this is live. God damn it.
See,
yeah, that's why I never did live book readings on the channel. I tried
it. It didn't work.
I enjoy it. It's just Old English will kill me. That and Italian. But I was going to say, so you do erotic fanfics, and you're noticing the same thing I notice with doing adult games. I hate when people do like an hour-long sex scene, and it's like, come on, this is getting boring. Can we move on?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or the worst part is, I don't mind the silly ones where it's like the plot is completely, you could
out there.
It's out there. Because at least then it's like, okay, fine, this makes sense as to why sex would be the cure. Okay, whatever, this works. But when they try too hard to do like that thriller, like, oh my God, this is such a thrilling plot line. By the way, here's an hour-long sex scene before we get to the next plot point. And then, of course, the betrayal, and then they get back together, and yada, 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 yada. It's like the plot seems out of place. Either you want to write a crime thriller or an erotica, but
you can do both. It's just stop giving an hour-long sex scene. It's not hot.
Yeah.
Everybody's clicking through that thing way too fast anyway, people.
Yeah.
Oh, especially when it's like the one page of how big the guy is. It's like, yeah, I could tell. I could tell what your fantasy is, because
I'm doing one game right now called Failed Quest, and it's a good game. It's actually really fun. The storyline's really fun. And then you get to the sex scenes. And it's like, okay. then she's like, I want to go again. I want to go again. I'm like, oh my God, just kill this poor bastard already.
Yeah.
I I haven't really played too many erotic hentai games.
I could recommend you a few.
Yeah, I'm sure. When I was in high school, or middle school, high school area, I got into them because my girlfriend at the time, who was a couple years older than me, had a hookup and had a bunch of them, including, I can't remember what the game was called, but it was a detective game, but you got new detective abilities by fucking your clients after you solve their case.
Wait, what? Find the name of that one.
I can't remember.
Was it called Chains?
Remember. Honestly, I don't remember. It was something detective, but this is years ago, so you're talking early, mid-90s, so it would have been a DOS game at the time.
Sounds amazingly horrible. I want to play it.
It was. Because it had, like, the old-style point-and-click adventure stuff for the sex scenes. So it was like a Sierra-style icons for the sex scenes, but they were slightly animated, like the tongue for the mouth icon was like doot. Well, she had brought me over to her place when her parents weren't around, so we were playing this game on the computer, and we were having a fun, you know. I was just happy to be playing the game with her at the time. And I'm doing my best to get through one of these sex scenes so that way I can get the power up and, so we can progress in the story. We don't hear that her mother has come into the room and walks up behind me. And mind you, she's known me for years at this point. And she just walks up behind me and goes, "That's not how you eat a woman's pussy."
That's amazing.
I about jumped out of my skin.
Oh, she must have been laughing her ass off.
Oh, yeah.
That is like the greatest reaction ever. Like, it's gotten so bad when I do these games and they actually have voicing. I'm just sitting there going, she's faking it. She's faking it. That's not even how you do it.
Yeah.
Then the rare one comes by, oh, she used something.
It's like, oh, she's too good. What did she do?
Yeah, no. She was in that voice booth with the remote. That
There's a reason
discreetly
most of them do it at home now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, discreet remote. Okay, now I can make the moan sound natural.
What's funny is I talked to one of the guys that does some of the sound effects that you see in these games.
Mm-hmm.
And he's explaining how they do a lot of them, and I couldn't stop laughing. He's like, yeah, that squishing sound is just like us putting our hand in like a thing of mayonnaise and stuff. And I started laughing, just picturing him having to look at this scene and just like, get in there, mayonnaise, get in there. And I'm just like, yeah, we slapped bologna together for this sound. Like, he's saying this stuff like with a straight face, and I'm in the background laughing, just picturing it.
Oh, no, it's hilarious. If you ever talk to Foley artists who have been in the industry for years and years and years, oftentimes Foley studios, they'll just take work from wherever it comes from. They often aren't, like, synced up with any one studio. And one of the guys I talked to when I was in college, they used to do Foley work for porn. You know, that was some of the stuff they talked about. Like, you know, some of those noises aren't, because it was before, like, we had these really hot, powerful microphones that could pick up every single, you know, sound effect and so on. So you would get like, oh yeah, you know, we're punching mayo, we're slapping literal meats, you know.
It's so amazing. I love it.
Like, oh yeah, it's great stuff.
And I know there's like a taboo against doing adult games and stuff, but honestly, from what I'm finding from doing these, a lot of these are actually written better than a lot of the freaking AAA games I've seen. Like, they treat a character better.
They have a harder time developing an audience, if you think about it, because they're not going to be sold in a regular store. So they have to set themselves apart. They have to catch the eye of enough people to get them to get that word of mouth, because otherwise they're not going to have any sales.
Yeah. Except if you're a Japanese game and then everything has to be rape. What is it with Japan in that?
Yeah, the only country I know of that produced is where a game that was just called Rape Lay, and actual rape was the whole target.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a game.
It's really messed up. I don't do a lot of Japanese games. I find them very boring. I like doing games, especially Russians are really good with these games. It's scary. It's like maybe we should keep the porn from Russia because they keep coming up with better stuff. I don't know. See, I don't know why everyone hates Russia. They make great porn games. Come on.
Well, they're very dour people. They're very dour people. You know, so like they don't think that you should even smile in public in a lot of cases.
See, that's not true. I know a lot of Russians because of doing these games. They're not as straight-laced. Although I do know one that everyone thinks is so mean and nasty, and I found out he takes his money and goes and feeds kittens.
Yep. Hey, everyone is... It's just, you know, those old stereotypes. You know, it very well could be nasty, just like anyone else is straight-laced. But because, you know, maybe the accent or the demeanor, everyone assumes it's far worse than it really is.
Right? The chat is just like, what did we get into?
I have no idea
my chat
anymore.
knows who I'm talking about. I am talking about exactly who you think I'm talking about, guys. He secretly likes to feed kittens.
My reputation is ruined!
His reputation got ruined a long time ago. Yes, it is Akabur. Akabur's the one he likes to go feed stray kittens. Mr. Big Tough Bear likes to feed kittens.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there. It's like they're big and strong. Then you find out they're like the softest thing on the face of the planet, and dogs do not make it out of the room.
Oh, the bouncer I used to work with was just a big old teddy bear. When I worked at a BDSM club when I was in college to pay a little extra bills, I worked as the bouncer for the velvet rope, you know, for behind the velvet rope, and the main bouncer was just this giant, you know, bear of a human being, you know, and of course everyone called him Tiny because it was the typical joke. Yeah. When he was working, you would think he was going to rip your face off, but you know, soon as like no one was around, we'd be sitting there shooting the shit, and friendliest guy you ever talked to, but like soon as like clients, you know, the clients are showing up, it's like, I'm all business. Second no one's around, it's like, oh man, I could really go for a soda and beer or something. Like, when this is all done, let's go get something to eat, man. These people, Jesus, you know, he was just, you know, as a working guy as anyone else.
It's like
he just knew that he looked like he was going to kill you at any moment.
There's a doctor I'm friends with, and I call him Runt. Dude has tattoos everywhere. He's got like the full-on beard. He looks like one of those really tough biker types, and he's a pediatrician. So the parents will come in terrified of him, and he'll give like the kids like teddy bears and lollipops, and he'll talk to them, and like the kids love him. They absolutely adore him.
Right.
The parents are terrified of him. It's the funniest thing ever. He comes out of work dressed like that stereotypical biker and stuff like that. You just see that one parent in like that hasn't left yet, eyes wide, looking terrified, and he's just waving, "Hi!" It's the funniest thing ever.
Well, that's our 2-hour mark. We got to get ready for when our kids get home.
Oh yeah, they come home.
Oh, she sounds so happy about them coming home.
I'm never happy for them to come home.
See, don't say that because karma may. Don't be happy.
Oh, I love them. I love them. As annoying as they are.
She just loves that couple hours of silence between classes.
Thank you, Purity, for coming on. Everything. It was fun.
Yeah,
it was. I would come on anytime you guys need me. And guys from my chat, go sub to them. They deserve it. They're awesome.
Thank you, everyone, for showing up and watching. And thank you again to Batman and American Phoenix for the super chats there earlier. I don't know what movie we're doing tonight on our other channel. I have to dig and pick something. I have been very busy with those in our chat. Working out details with the job I'm getting in Vegas. So expect a movie. I just don't know if they send me the paperwork. I don't know if I'll be sober for said movie.
Go do some classic Universal Monsters.
Probably, if it's as long as it's public domain.
Yeah.
And 9 Central, Raystone. 9 Central.
Yeah, on the Shitlords Anonymous channel, not this one. Our side channel.
That's the channel you have more fun on.
Yes. Alrighty, everyone. Take it easy.
Later.
Enjoy your afternoon. Bye.
All right, guys, I'm going to hop off, too. I've got to do some editing and some other work. I'll be back tonight for God of War, maybe some Far Cry 5. Thank you guys for joining me. It was a lot of fun. I definitely enjoyed. Go check them out over on their channels. And I'll see you all later. Bye, everyone. Mwah.